Hi, today on Indicator TV we welcome author Drago, author of 6 published books, 3 children's horror, 1 teen historical fiction, which is now sadly out of print, an adult sci-fi mystery combo and a time travel anthology. Ty has recently become a full-time writer and has also had the first of his children's series, Rise of the Corpses, made into or adapted into a movie. I'll be asking him 20 questions about that later, but for now please welcome Drago. First of all, Drago is a pretty super cool name. It reminds me of Khal Drogo from the Game of Thrones. Is it a real name?
I get that a lot.
Or really?
Yeah.
Damn, I don't feel that original.
Yes. The name is mine. My legal name is Anthony. Ty's a nickname I've had since pretty much the day I was born.
Huh.
Because there were so many Anthonys in my family, and my mother didn't want me to be called Little Tony all my life, so she took the O and the N out of Tony, squeezed the T and the Y together, and I've been Ty ever since.
Ah, because Ty just makes me think of Tyrone or something like that. So
yeah, Tyrus, Tyrone, Tyrell, I get a lot of that.
Tyrell, oh geez, what's with all the Game of Thrones references? Oh no. So this is something I guess I wanted to ask all my guests to see what they say. Obviously you haven't done any writing courses, but do you think it's sort of important for writers to study sort of something and to learn how to write, even just the basics?
I think it's important for writers to read.
I agree.
You want to write something. You want to write in a genre. Read the genre. Know it. Understand it. Understand how its rules, because the different genres have different rules. And I think then that it's a matter of writing, sharing what you write. I mean, if you sit on it, you learn nothing. You learn how to improve your writing through criticism, and you have to be willing to put it out there. If not to a publisher or an editor who's just going to send you a pretty vanilla rejection letter. Join a writers group. I'm a big fan of writers groups. Get a circle of friends. Swap writings. You can do it a lot online these days.
Yeah.
Get a circle of friends. Swap writing. Talk about it. Get some feedback and learn from that.
Great answer. I totally agree with that. Okay, so you've published the first 2 of your Undertakers series with Sourcebooks/Jabberwocky, and the third with Month 9 Books. What happened there? Why would the change in publishers?
Sourcebooks, the editor I had at Sourcebooks, who championed the series, quit, basically.
Oh.
Publishing companies, they're not great payers, and they do tend to have a heavy turnaround. And she left the company, and the new guy they brought in just wasn't a big fan of the series. So when book 2 came out, it did not get as much enthusiasm as I'd expected and I'd hoped from the first book. And
you mean with the fans or with the publisher?
With the editor.
Oh, okay, yep.
With the new editor. Now the money was fine, but it was the new editor. He wasn't enthusiastic. He wasn't passionate about the series. So my agent and I just decided to see what else we could do with the 3rd book. And Month 9 Books is a smaller outfit, but they have been incredibly enthusiastic. And they put a lot behind it, and book 3 sold out the first day, so I can't complain too much.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you weren't contracted with Sourcebooks to do the trilogy?
No, well, actually it's 5 books in the series. And Sourcebooks was buying 1 book at a time.
Okay.
So when book 3 came around, we simply went to Month 9 Books instead.
Is that a typical thing of small presses, just to buy 1 at a time?
Yes.
Okay.
It's actually a typical thing in the publishing industry these days to buy 1 at a time. Unless you're a really heavily established best-selling author.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get them to commit to a series.
Interesting. Okay.
They're not buying a lot of series right now anyway. They're leaning more towards standalone books. So it's tricky. So you get used to the idea. Even Month 9 Books is 1 book at a time.
That's changed. I mean, I was querying back in 2012, and series were all the rage. So,
it has. In the last few years, it's turned around. It used to be they would buy 3 books without thinking twice about it.
Yeah,
that's changed. Yeah, the market evolves.
Yeah, and the penny purses get tighter, don't they?
They do.
So I guess your sci-fi mystery, is it Phobos?
Phobos.
Yeah. Sorry, the accent, yeah. That's published with Tor, and they're a bit of a larger publisher of sci-fi and fantasy. How does the small press compare to the bigger publisher?
You get more personal attention.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is nice. You get more input into things like cover. I never liked Phobos' cover very much. I had a lot more input with the Undertakers covers. And they just put more behind it. Some of the big publishers, they're putting out so many titles, and they simply don't have the time to put behind every cover what they'd like to. So you tend to get lost in the shuffle if you're not a big name, and back then that was really my first mainstream published book. So
it sounds like you'd go with a small press any day over. Yeah.
For now. Okay. I do enjoy the process. Is a lot more gratifying.
Yeah. Well, you've made it sound very delightful. So. Oopsies! I just skipped forward 2 questions accidentally. Okay, so now it's your boasting time. So I want to hear about Rise of the Corpses, and that being adapted into a film with the screenwriter Jeffrey Riddick of Final Destination fame. And I'm not sure how you pronounce the producers. Is it Mondesine?
Mondesine, yeah.
Mondesine. Oh, okay, right. Jeez, well, that's terrible of me. They've had a bunch of horror, even more terrible is they've got a bunch of horror films that I haven't even heard of. But anyway, before I get into asking you more about the Rise of the Corpses, oh no, hang on, I'm just going to ignore that. I want to know more about how you landed the film adaptation and what the process was there.
Well, actually what happened was a senior editor at Source Books, who has always been a fan, different editor, sent the first book to the producer, the president of Modern Cinema, is a guy named Andrew Vanderhooten. And Andrew loved it, so he contacted my agent. My agent, without telling me a word, sent him the manuscript, because that's where we were at that time, for book 2. And he read that in a day and loved it. So he sent her an email, to my agent an email, saying he wanted to option both books.
Cool.
Book 1 for him, and into a feature film. So, I get this email from my agent forwarding his email, and, my wife and I just stared at it in shock. So then we arranged to meet in New York, and I met Andrew, and we talked about it, and he was so enthusiastic, and then he brought Jeffrey into the project, and Jeffrey wrote this amazing screenplay, and now they're pushing forward. It's a slow process. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
But they're looking at more of a very mainstream, very, very large budget movie, so it takes longer to put that sort of thing together.
Am I able to ask about the budget?
I don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
And there's also a lot I'm not allowed to say because they keep a very tight lid on stuff.
Oh, really? Well, can I ask? Just tell me yes or no answers if you can't answer it. But how much do you estimate of the book got into the film adaptation, the screenplay?
There were some changes.
Yeah.
I can't talk about what those changes were.
Oh no, don't worry. I won't ask.
Well, Stephen King once said that having a book made into a movie is like sending your child off to college. You hope they'll do well, but really there's nothing you can do about it.
Oh.
And but I've been fortunate because Jeffrey and I talked on the phone for hours.
Yep.
We discussed every change, and his reasoning for it to broaden the market appeal of the book of the movie, and I write books. They make movies. I trust their judgment.
Okay.
That's what it comes down to.
Okay. So does the fact that they've written the screenplay obviously means that, it's got a strong likelihood of being filmed, but does that necessarily guarantee it will be?
No.
No.
No, it looks very well. You talk to Andrew, he'll tell you it's a done deal. He's a energetic guy.
Sounds a bit like a car salesman.
Not that bad. God, sorry, Andrew. No, he's a great guy. He's become a good friend of mine, and he's very enthusiastic about the whole series. He's very enthusiastic about the project. He's got all these great ideas. But the reality of it is I've been in this business a long time, not the movie business, but the book business, and there's no guarantees. Until it happens, I remain cautiously optimistic.
It's probably a good way to go rather than be disappointed.
Hopeful.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing to see. I mean, it's really a writer's holy grail is when you get your book made into a movie.
I know it is, and congratulations. It's really awesome news. I guess one more final question about the movie. do you know how long it sort of takes to, I guess, do that whole process of writing the screenplay? And I guess you're not really up to this point, but casting actors and pre-preparation, all that sort of thing that goes into. Do they give you any indication?
I really don't. I mean, the screenplay took most of a year.
Wow.
To write. Well, that's because he took his time and did it right.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times he'd call me up and say, "Look, listen, Tom, I'm stuck on this particular part. Let's talk through." And we talked for a while, and he's terrific. And we'd sort it out. We'd brainstorm. We'd come up with a way. Because, you're taking an 85,000 word book and you're turning it into a 110 page screenplay. So you have to, some condensing has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't capture all the nuances and all the tertiary characters and all that business. You have to do things. And we've seen that in all the movies that have been made. Harry Potter's, the Twilights, although I haven't actually seen the Twilight movie. Although I did read the first book. So that's just I did. I wanted to see what all the fuss was about.
Don't tell me you read 50 Shades of Grey too.
No, I haven't read 50 Shades of Grey. I'm not interested in the fuss there. But it's just the process. So yeah, it took him a while to get the screenplay to a point that he liked, and when he sent it, I'm telling you, he knocked it out of the park. It was really, really well done.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, you want to have
very excited screenplay.
Yeah, well, you want to have faith that they've done a good job. I mean, I'd hate for them to totally cut it up and make it. Oh, I don't know. Well, I mean, I watched Harry Potter 6, the first one, the other week, and that was terrible. I was constantly turning around to my boyfriend and going, "What's this mean? What are they doing?" Because I haven't read the books and I didn't have a clue what was going on. So you really had to have read the books to and I just hate for anyone's book to be cut up like that, you know what I mean? And then things don't make sense. So,
well, some people have had it really rough in that regard, and other people have been pretty decent. They did a nice job with Life of Pi, which is one of my favorite books.
I haven't read that, but that was a pretty amazing movie, so I was very impressed.
Yeah, the book is astonishing.
Yeah? I'll have to put that on my to-read list.
You should. I've read it 4 times.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let's dig into the nitty-gritty of writing your children's horror.
Okay.
I guess because it's completely different. You've written like a historical fiction, an anthology, a science fiction, and now horror. So what draws you to like children's and horror?
Well, my son, years ago, he's 20 now. Back then he was 12. We were in the mall one day, and he said to me, you ever think of writing a kid's book for like my age group? And I started kicking around ideas of, and it's funny because what I started remembering were those comic books I wrote when I was a kid, and those superheroes that I invented. Not the superhero business, but the notion of all those superheroes were kids, and I liked the idea of a child army of kids. Just kids fighting a war that only they can fight because only they know about it. And then it was a matter of finding out, okay, so who are they going to fight? And so I spent a lot of time trying to come up with a good bad guy, something original, something with a new twist to it. And I came up with the idea of smart zombies, basically.
Yeah. How does that happen?
You start thinking about it. Well, I don't want to do vampires because Lord knows we need another vampire book. I don't want werewolves because that doesn't seem to work. How about a zombie invasion? Well, that'd be great, except how would just kids know there's a zombie invasion? You'd think the adults would notice, right? So, and I thought, well, what if they had a means of disguising themselves, these zombies, so they wouldn't know they were zombies, so they looked alive? And then we got into this whole thing about the notion of intelligent walking corpses that are infiltrating rather than just eating brains. They're slowly infiltrating and destroying the world from within. And these kids can see the truth and rally together because there's nobody else who can.
When you're obviously writing for children in horror, you have to be conscious of things with gore and violence, which would be a big feature of zombies. I don't really read zombie fiction, so I don't know all much horror. But how do you make it appropriate for young readers? What strategies to use to balance the gore and all that sort of thing?
Well, there's two ways to write horror. You can go with you can be scary without being gory.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a little fun with the gross aspect.
Yeah.
Because these are walking cadavers. And they have a tendency to have, maggots dribbling out of their mouths and get chopped off them, and, eyeballs are hanging from sockets. So I have a really good time with that. The kids my readers tend to love it because they're of an age, 10 and up, where they want to be challenged by these visual images. I don't go into the kind of hardcore slasher stuff that some horror novelists do. Although, kids do get hurt. It is a war. In fact, occasionally they die. But it is... I tend to low-key that aspect of it, but I play up the corpses and their grossness because that's what the kids are really interested in hearing about.
Cool. I guess my next question is probably going to overlap that a bit, but are there any rules for writing horror for kids so you don't sort of give them nightmares? Obviously, you mentioned the humour and that sort of thing. Are there any other tricks?
For not giving them nightmares?
Yeah.
I've never had anybody say to me, "You're giving me nightmares." A couple ways to do it. One is give them heroes they can relate to.
Yeah.
I mean, horror can't just be about the monsters.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be about a hero who in every single book bests them to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real good nightmare cure right there. The nightmares come from the fear and uncertainty of something that can't be beaten. You beat it, and you can defeat that. In children's horror, you want to delineate very clearly between the good guys and the bad guys. In some horror, you can give your bad guy some degree of humanity because it makes them a little bit more rounded, a little bit more depth. There's a lot more depth. You don't necessarily want to do that in children's horror. You want your villains to be clearly, viciously, relentlessly evil, so that the hero's defeat of them is satisfying and complete. Now, not all the victories are complete. There's always victory at a cost, but at least it's victory. So, and then also, there are two kinds of ways to deliver scares in a horror book. I mean, you can do the pop-ups. You can do, something where someone turns a corner and there's a monster. But you also have that slow dread you let it build. I mean, these kids live in squalor because they have to. They've all run away from home because if the corpses find out that you can see them, they hunt you down. And if you run home and tell mommy, they'll take out your family too. So you run away from home. And so they live basically in a sub-basement beneath City Hall in Philadelphia, in squalor, barely getting by, sending out night patrols and small guerrilla tactics after dark to attack the corpses, strike and then disappear again. They use all sorts of little tricks to figure out corpse plots and beat them at their own game and that sort of thing. So I get a lot of emails from kids who are relating to particular characters, particular Undertakers, as I'm like him or I'm like her. And that's always gratifying to get that. And it tells me that I'm avoiding the nightmares because they are relating to the kids, not the monsters.
That's a great answer, actually. I really like your philosophy on that. It's interesting that you say that you like the viciously evil bad guys because I always sort of read that you got to make your bad guys relatable or they have to have a reason why they're bad. But you sort of sound like you don't really give them that. They're just evil for the...
In adult fiction, you do. In adult fiction, that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
A two-dimensional villain in adult fiction doesn't sell well. But in children's fiction, yeah, it's perfectly fine. Because let's face it, I mean, look at it from a kid's perspective. Children don't, as a rule, challenge the motives of adults. They just it's what they see is what they get. So they really wouldn't know what to do with a complicated villain.
Okay.
Now, the kids themselves, you want many dimensions to.
Yeah.
But... The monsters, let them be monsters.
I guess that's where you have to sort of use your discretion with the genres you write and the advice you read because, sometimes I read these blog posts and they don't really specify the genre, so that's a really great tip, actually.
Oh, you do? I mean, if you're writing more YA, more conventional YA, like the stuff that A.S. King writes, for example, then everybody's got depth. because that's more slice of life, that's more reality, that's more into it. What I'm writing is horror fantasy.
Do you find that though? I mean, do your bad guys live on past book one? I mean, if they live on past book one, I would imagine you might have to give them a bit more depth.
Well, there are a lot of corpses. There's thousands of them scattered around the Philadelphia area, and more coming in every day.
Oh gosh.
So the main bad guy in book one, without giving away too much, does not see book two. But in book two, I introduce the Queen of the Dead, who is the leader of the invasion, and she hangs around through the end. And she's a lot of fun because she is very sophisticated and very very vain. Someone who walks around wearing a cadaver. Very well spoken, but utterly savage. If an underling crosses her, that underling is ripped apart. And she has nothing but absolute hatred for the Undertakers, determined to hunt them down and kill them with her bare hands if that's what it takes. And so she's Lilith. Lilith Kavanaugh is her name, and she's a lot of fun.
Sophisticated and vain doesn't really sound like a zombie, but I like your take on that.
No, it doesn't.
Does that mean she takes really attractive cadavers?
She likes her host bodies to be very fresh.
Okay.
And if she sees a woman in a nice body, she will have that woman killed so she can wear that body.
Oh, wow, she is very vicious.
Yeah, she's not nice.
That's probably why the kids like her so much. Tell us some of the key ingredients that you use for making killer action, gore, and horror scenes.
Oh, okay. Keep the senses in mind. Not everything. There's more to it than sight. Zombies look gross, but they also smell like nobody's business. I developed this grading system, type 1 through type 5. With type 1s are very fresh, type 5s are practically falling apart. And at different levels, they have different aspects to them. The type 1s are very, very strong, very, very dangerous. Type 2s are still very, very strong, but they're starting to fill with gases. Their tissues are beginning to deteriorate. Type 3s are bloated and smelly and got bugs crawling around in them. Type 4s are getting all skinny. Their flesh is being pulled tight against their skulls. They don't move as quick as they used to, and you can snap parts off of them if you hit them the right way. And type 5s are practically walking skeletons. You hit them with a good club with a baseball bat and they'll shatter. And I have a lot of fun with which type the heroes are dealing with in combat and the different techniques for fighting that particular type.
Uh-huh.
For example, the type 3s are so swollen and bloated, and their eyes are so popped out they have lousy peripheral vision. So, that sort of thing. But the corpses can be very quick, very fast. They can leap for ridiculous distances. They don't particularly care what happens to their bodies, so they tend to fight ferociously. But they can. In book 2, they do find a way to kill them.
Interesting.
Permanently.
Sounds like you got a lot of the quirks that the kids would love, especially in the types.
They're sensitive to salt water. So we use a lot of water pistols and super soakers and water balloons.
Oh, key ingredients for kids.
Yep, that's right. Wrappings of childhood.
What are 3 tips you'd give to anyone thinking of writing children's horror?
Read it. That's the first tip. Read modern children's horror. There's a lot of it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Pick it up, read it, and see if you can find a new spin. Don't be afraid to challenge the readers. I don't write down to them.
Mm-hmm.
I write an adult book for the most part, and then I'll, within certain rules. And then I bear in mind my readership, of course, but at the same time, I don't stop and say, well, they won't know what this word means. In fact, every once in a while, I'll hang a lantern on it. I'll say something like, oh, that's a fresco. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Some such thing, where you have to understand that these kids are living in an age of hyper-violent video games, where the number one show on television is The Walking Dead. And you can't fade to black with these guys anymore. They're not interested. If you want to capture them, if you want to bring them coming back, if you want to tell them a good story, you have to be willing to put it out there for them and say, here it is. Don't shy away from it. It's scary, but good will win in the end. And as far as the third tip, the kids must always, always, always win the day, in the sense that no adults come in and rescue them. Mm-hmm. That is one of the key ingredients of children's adventure, is that the children save the day. The adults are next to useless. And that's definitely the case in my books. The adults are, in fact, the adults cause more problems than they solve.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I'm really surprised on that point you made about the language. I'm really surprised when I read some books. I mean, I'm 34 and I have to look up some of the words they use in kids' books. I'm like, I've never even heard of that. So it's great that you're... it's great... yeah, it's great that you're challenging them.
Little story, weird little... that nobody had ever heard of.
And what do you find really hard about writing children's books, and what are your strategies to combat that?
It was very hard in the beginning. I mean, in the beginning, you gotta understand, it's been a long time since I was 12. And the world was very different. When I was 12, there were no video games. There was no internet. A phone was a big device that sat on your table. It was hardwired to the wall, and it was made of steel, and it was heavy enough that if a burglar broke in, you could bash him over the head with it. Although I'll tell you this, back in my day, you could hang up on someone and mean it.
Yeah, no.
It's like, I'm so mad at you. I missed the boom days. Miss that. So what I did was I sat down with my son, and he became my guide for book one, teaching me what it is to be 11, 12 years old in the modern day, how they think, how they act, how the world treats them, how they look at the world, their communication, they have weird language all their own, how they talk to each other is very important. So I spent a lot of time on book one. I rewrote it 3 or 4 times before I got it right, or more to the point where my son said, you've got it right. Oh. Now, like putting an old shoe, I can sit down. I've written 4 of these books now, so I can sit down and just jump into one. 4 books and a novella. So I'm pretty comfortable with the voice, but back then it took a long time to figure out how to write for kids.
Yeah, you're lucky you had your son as a sounding board. So yeah,
I dedicated the book to him for it. Yeah,
and so it doesn't go to the publisher until you've got your son's seal of approval, and by the sounds of it.
Yeah, absolutely. My son reads it. My wife reads it. I reads it for anybody. Yes.
So the Undertaker series has a boy as the main character. I've read that it's hard to get boys to read. Obviously, you mentioned, there's computer games and things like that. What are some of your techniques to attract boys and keep them hooked in your series?
Give them a hook. Give the boys a hook they've never heard of. Talk about smart zombies. That by itself seems to work. I get letters all the time from moms saying, my son's a reluctant reader and he's eating up your books. He's on.
That's amazing.
It's terrifying to get something like that. I wanted to write something that would grab them. You want to grab these kids from the first line of the first page. Because, the days of it was a dark and stormy night are long over, especially in children's fiction. You need people to reach out from the first words, from the first paragraph, and say, and here's something you've never seen before. Wow, and pull them in, and just keep pulling them deeper and deeper into the story. And once you do that, you got them.
Some great advice there. Okay, so I noticed on Goodreads review list, most of the reviewers were female. Are they teachers or mothers, and do you have any sort of young girls who read your books and are fans?
Yeah, I've got some very strong female characters. In fact, I just got an email today from an aspiring young actress who wants to play the female lead.
Oh. That's a good sign.
It happens a lot. I get a lot. And when I go around the schools, I'll get kids who raise their hand. I want to be in the movie. Can I be in your movie? And then a couple of teachers come up to me and say, "Oh, you're acting. Can I send you my headshot?" Things like that. And I tell all, we're not casting yet. And when the time comes, I'll post them on my website. And if you can get They're the auditions to bring out, go for it. But to answer the question, the female characters are strong. I mean, male character has a romance actually going on there with female lead. He's named after my wife, by the way. And they're equals in every respect. I mean, he's not saving her any more than she's saving him, and girl readers have really responded to that. Girl readers have really gotten her.
Cool. I like that. Now, you mentioned your novelette before, so you obviously offer a free novelette, and this is a really, from what I've read, is a really great idea for attracting new readers to take a look at some of your previous work, and it's also a nice little gift for your existing fans. Has it been successful in bringing new readers?
I think so. I mean, I keep getting when I go out to signings, I'll get kids who bring printouts of the novelette for me to sign.
Oh, that's cute.
Oh yeah, I guess people are enjoying it. I put it out because we were in the middle of changing publishers, and I knew there was going to be a gap between book 2 and book 3, and I wanted to fill the gap with something.
Oh.
So I wrote it to fill the gap between 2 and 3.
So it wasn't actually a promotional thing. It's just like a little thing that tied them over.
In the sense that you think about the readership of the entire series as a whole, I offered it for free because I wanted fans to be drawn to it and realize, the Undertaker stories is going on, and there's a third book coming out, and it's just going to be a little longer than it should have been. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. It was a neat little story to write.
Cool.
Night of Monsters.
What is it separate from the series, or does it sort of is it an offshoot of one of the books?
Chronologically, it sits between books 2 and 3.
Okay. There you go.
Like a mini adventure.
Cool. What other promotional exercises have you done, or what would you recommend that's worked for you?
Schools.
Mm-hmm.
I have done scores of school visits. I've been to 60+ schools in 6 states over here, mostly in the East Coast of the United States, and up and down. And I go to middle schools and I talk to thousands and thousands of kids. I have this spiel I've done 100 and 200 times that I've been inside and sideways. I mean, in fact, I'm in the middle of a school tour right now. I've got 3 next week.
I noticed that on your calendar, yeah.
Yeah, actually 1 next week and 3 the following week. So, yeah, I did one last Friday. We had a great time. Sold 300 books.
Wow.
So, yeah, they go very, very well. The kids really respond to them. I get great sales. I get some great buzz. And that's what it's all about.
When you say great buzz, do they sort of notify people in their school newsletter, or does it go in the local papers that local authors coming?
Kids talk to each other. Facebook, Twitter. They comment on. I have a YouTube channel where the book trailers are stored and other independent trailers kids have done based on my books. And they're all up there. And they all get commented on, and I get kids commenting on my blog site, signing the guest book, saying hello, you came to my school. It's you get a lot of positive feedback.
That's amazing. How do you manage the ones that are a little bit further away, like that are interstate? Do you have to stay overnight, and do they pay you for attending the school, or you just do it and then obviously you earn the income from the sales?
Alaska Speakers fee is not much. In fact, for the first couple of years, I see speakers fee all and check too expensive. But now I do ask a modest speaker. But like in schools, if the school is in a particularly low-income area, I'll offer pro bonos. My wife and I will take road trips. We did a road trip up in Maine and Vermont. We did one down in Kentucky, just further south, and Maryland. Did some visits down there. So I go pretty far. I haven't. It hasn't come through right now because I really don't have the time and to travel. But mostly I stick to my local states and the states around me. I live in really, really small states. Able to go to other states.
Okay. That's one thing I think a lot of children's authors really need to do more, is do the school visits, because they really seem to pay off.
They do. Some authors are a little nervous about being inspected. Never been a problem.
So what sort of things do you do when you go to the schools? I was reading some information about that, and they say it's better to have some sort of workshop rather than, or something, some sort of angle rather than just coming to talk about your book. What do you do when you do your visits?
I don't do readings. I never love books or reading. Tell the story instead. I move around a lot. I get a lot of stories. I'll also do workshops. I've got 2 of them, but they tend to be for smaller audiences. And you can do a workshop with 600 kids.
Yeah, that's pretty hectic.
You maximum is about 30 for me. But when I take an auditorium in front of, sort of moving along, funny, being entertained, you get up there behind a podium and lecture. I don't do PowerPoint presentation. I do a couple of trailers. I ask them questions. I do quick surveys, shows of hands. I get them involved in the process. It's about sharing energy. It's about going out there and just being a showman, really.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing comes pretty simple to me.
You're very lucky. What sort of questions do you ask them? Just sort of stuff to engage them?
Well, first I'll start off with, who here is a writer? How many writers do we have in the room? You know, when you get smattering hands, you know, I've used verbs. But, and then I ask, all right, let's ask that a different way. If you've ever written a report or an essay or a lengthy email or a particularly wordy text message, raise your hand, and all the hands will go up. Every hand in the room will go up. Congratulations, you're all writers. Because if you want to be a writer, you're right. There's no other requirement. And then at the end of the talk, I'll say, well, now, after I've been talking, how many of you think you want to be published writers? And some hands will go up. How about actors or actresses? Some hands go up. How about singers, dancers, and musicians? Some hands go up. How about sculptors or painters? Some hands go up. By the end of that, I usually have, a good percentage of the room with their hands up. I said, now, how bad do you want it? Because here's the reality of it. Not easy. And I talk about rejection letters, and I talk about, how you have to have the strength of will and the confidence in yourself to, no matter how many times you hear the word no, keep pushing forward, keep pushing forward. I have 100+ rejection letters that I'm in my drawer right now, because that's the business I'm in. I live in a world of no, and I tell them that. And afterwards, they'll come up to me and they'll talk to me about some stuff that they've written or been talking about and thinking about. Do you think I could submit this? And I tell them, absolutely, submit everything. But when they say no to you, and they might, submit it again and again and again, because that's how you do it.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's very encouraging.
It's easy to get discouraged in this business when you're not prepared for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess with kids, they're so impressionable too, so you really want to be encouraging them.
You do. You want to tell them, listen, just because an editor turned you down doesn't mean the story's terrible. It doesn't mean you're a bad writer. It means the editor turned it down, and that's all it means. Yeah.
They don't like it, but somebody else will. So
that's right. Very subjective business.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. What else have you done for your book promotion?
Oh, we've got bookmarks. We've got buttons. I've done blog tours. This is my first Skype interview. Although apparently I've just been invited to another, so go figure.
Oh, I set up a chain reaction.
You did. I did a radio spot some time ago. I do bookstores and libraries. Kids' books, as a rule, don't do well in bookstore book signings because kids have no way of necessarily getting to a brick-and-mortar bookstore easily anymore. Unless their parents bring them, and then it turns into this whole thing. That sort of venue generally lends itself better to adult nonfiction and things like that. People who are interested in the subject, or unless of course you're a big name, and then they'll come out in droves. I've seen some. I've gone to a few. Some friends of mine who've done that have been amazingly well attended.
With kids' books or different genres?
Well, once with a kids' book. A friend of mine is a New York Times best-selling kids author. And I went to one of her book signings, and she had a nice crowd.
Cool.
But to be honest with you, I've done way better at schools.
Yeah, that sounds like it's the way to go. It sounds like it's been your most successful. I mean, selling several hundred books in one go is amazing.
That's not even the record.
Is what? Not even the record?
It's not even the record.
Really? What's the record?
Close to 500.
Oh, wow. That's pretty impressive.
One day, yeah.
That's pretty impressive. What's the hardest thing about book marketing, and how do you get around it?
Hardest thing about book marketing is there's tons of other people doing the same thing.
Yes.
And, competition with other writers is a fact of life. But the fact is we're dealing in a business where that competition, it's not a bitter competition. I mean, writers support each other. And when I post something about some school visit I'm doing or some other event that I'm going to be at in way of self-promotion, I might put it on Twitter or Facebook, that tweet will be shared, will be retweeted. That Facebook entry will be shared by fellow writers who are spreading the word about this event that I'm having. And when other writers when I see other things about other writers, I do the same thing. We get the word out. We all have followers. In fact, my Facebook following is a good deal larger than my Twitter following. My Twitter following has doubled in the past month, so I don't know what's going on there. No. But there is a machine out there for writers to encourage and support each other. So I do blog posts, I do guest posts, I do interviews, I answer questions. I wrote an article for Writer's Digest that was very, very well received. All this helps.
That's how I found you, actually. How did you get with Writer's Digest? Did you just apply?
No, publisher set it up.
Cool.
Monthly Books set it up. They have a terrific, a very agile and very exciting model for doing promotion that I'm very impressed with. And they set me up with some really nice strictly online situations. Blog tours and article writing opportunities like that one for Writer's Digest that worked out really, really well.
Yeah, no, that sounded pretty amazing. Sounds like they're getting you some really good gigs that you might not necessarily have if you were, if you were self-publishing or if you went with a small press.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Wow. So obviously you mentioned you're writing 5 books, and I think you said you've finished book 4. What's in store for you next?
Well, right now I've actually got an adult novel I'm working on. I've got another novel that my agent and I are going to be talking about because it needs work. And then I'll probably start book 5 probably in the second half of the year. And that'll be the last of the Undertakers adventures. How
long does it take you to write one of the Undertakers books?
Oh, very quick these days. I wrote book 4 in like 3 months. It's, the first one took years. Now it's like, I'm so comfortable with the characters and so comfortable with the voice and the pace that I just dive right in and go to town. It's a lot easier now.
Yeah.
I tell people I'm going to write the 5th book in a week and a half.
I'd be pretty impressed if you did.
Probably not.
How do you write your books? Do you they spill out, or do you have to plot them with chapter profiles and things like that? Or
no, I don't work from outlines. I sit down, I know where I want to go, and I just see where the story takes me, and I'm often surprised.
Wow, I don't think I could ever do that. I'm impressed, actually. I think they call you guys pansters.
Yes, we're pansters. Yes.
I'm very impressed. Right. Well, I guess that's the end of the interview.
Okay.
So thank you so much.